What rights do I have as a pedestrian in Colorado? In Colorado, you have the right to feel safe when you are walking, jogging, or standing on a sidewalk. The biggest rule is that drivers must yield or let you go first whenever you're in a crosswalk. Think of the crosswalk like an invisible safety bubble. When you step into it, the law puts a shield around you that drivers aren't allowed to poke through. The law says drivers must exercise due care to avoid hitting anyone. If a driver violates these rules, it can lead to negligence per se, which basically means the driver is automatically considered at fault because they broke a specific safety law designed to protect you. What makes a pedestrian accident case different from a regular car accident case? Think of a car like a giant suit of armor made of steel. When two cars hit, that armor protects the people inside. But when a car hits a person walking, there is no armor at all, making the injuries almost life-changing. It's like a playground where the big kids have to be extra careful not to run into the toddlers. That's how the law views the relationship between drivers and pedestrians. To explain the law behind this, we look at the duty of care, which says every driver must act like a reasonable person would to avoid hurting others, because pedestrians have no protection. A driver's duty of care is very high. If they fail this duty, it's called negligence. What if a child was hit by a car? When a child is hit by a car, it's a unique tragedy because children don't always understand the rules of the road like adults do. The law often holds drivers to an even higher standard of care when they are near schools or parks. If you are walking through a room full of crystal vases, you walk much more carefully than if you were in a room full of plastic blocks. In the eyes of the law, children are our crystal vases of our streets. Legally, a child is often not held to the same comparative fault standards as an adult because they lack the capacity to fully understand danger. We fight to protect the child's future by calculating future economic damages to cover medical care that could last a lifetime. What if I was hit in a crosswalk? If you were in a crosswalk, you are in the safety zone, and drivers are legally required to yield to you. Being in a crosswalk is like having a VIP pass to the street. You have been given permission to be there, and everyone else has to wait for you. From a legal perspective, hitting a pedestrian in a crosswalk is often a clear-cut case of breach of duty. If the driver was cited by police at the scene, we use that as evidence of their liability. What if I was not in a crosswalk when I was hit? Many people think that if they weren't in a crosswalk, they lose their rights automatically, but that is not true. Drivers must still pay attention to what's in front of them, even if you are in the middle of the block. It is like if you were tripped in the hallway at school. Just because you weren't in the perfect spot doesn't mean someone is allowed to run over you. Even if you were jaywalking, we use a rule called comparative negligence. This looks at the fault pie. If you were 20% at fault for crossing mid-block, but the driver was 80% at fault for speeding, you can still collect 80% of your damages. What if I was crossing with the light when the driver hit me? Crossing with a walk signal is like having a green light in a car. You followed all the rules perfectly. You were playing the game exactly by the rule book, and the driver decided to ignore the rules entirely. In court, this is a very strong way to prove liability. We focus on proving the full extent of your damages, making sure the insurance company pays for every doctor visit and every day of work you missed because of their driver's carelessness. What if I was crossing against the light when the driver hit me? If you are crossing against the "Don't Walk" sign, the insurance company will tell you that you have no case, but don't believe them. While you may take a slice of the fault pie, the driver still has a duty to avoid hitting you if they could have seen you. It's like a pilot landing a plane. Even if there is an obstacle on the runway that shouldn't be there, the pilot still has to try their best to miss it. This involves comparative fault, whether the driver had the last clear chance to avoid the accident. If the driver was texting and never hit their brakes, their negligence is the real reason you got hurt. What if the poor road conditions contributed to my pedestrian accident? Sometimes it's not just about the driver. If a stoplight was broken or a crosswalk was poorly lit, a city or company might be to blame. It's like a puzzle where multiple pieces are broken at the same time. You can't finish the puzzle if the pieces don't fit. Legally, this involves premises liability or claims against the government entity. These cases are complex because there are very strict rules and short deadlines to notify the government that you are suing them. We act fast and investigate the scenes, and we hold all responsible parties accountable. What should I do after a pedestrian accident? After a crash, your brain might feel like a computer that just crashed. You need to follow 3 simple steps: medical, police, and evidence. First, get medical help immediately, even if you think you're tough and feel fine. Second, call the police so they can write down the facts before the driver tries to change their story. Third, try to get the names and phone numbers of anyone who saw what happened. Think of the accident scene like a puzzle you need to photograph before someone shakes the table. You want to lock in the facts in black and white before anyone has a chance to forget them. Should I take pictures after the pedestrian accident? Yes, you absolutely should. Photos are like a time machine for your lawyer, because once the tow truck arrives and the glass is swept away, the evidence is gone forever. Don't just take 1 or 2 pictures, take 20, take 30. Get close-ups of the dent in the car where your body hit the windshield and the street sign. Think of it like taking crime scene photos for a detective movie. These pictures build a story that the insurance company cannot argue with later on. What should I avoid doing after a pedestrian accident? There are 2 giant mistakes you must avoid at all costs. First, never say, "I'm sorry" at the scene. In the legal world, saying sorry is like signing a confession that it was your fault, even if you were trying to be polite. Second, avoid talking about the details of the crash with anyone except your doctor and your lawyer. It's like when a referee makes a call in a game. You don't want to start arguing or giving statements until your coach is standing right next to you to protect your rights. Can I post about my pedestrian accident on social media? Treat your social media like a strict no-fly zone. Insurance adjusters are professional internet detectives, and they will look at your accounts. If you post a photo of yourself smiling at a family dinner, they will use it to argue that you aren't actually suffering or hurt. Think of it this way. The insurance company is on a scavenger hunt to find any reason to pay you less. Protect your case by going ghost online and keeping your private life private until your case is completely settled. Why is it important to act quickly after a pedestrian accident? Evidence has an expiration date, and it disappears like footprints in the rain. Skid marks fade from the asphalt, witnesses start to forget what color the traffic light was, and security cameras at nearby stores usually erase their tapes every few days. It's like trying to solve a mystery. If you don't collect the clues while they are fresh, the trail goes completely cold. If we jump in early, we can legally force businesses and drivers to save that evidence before it gets deleted. How long do I have to file a claim in a pedestrian accident in Colorado? In Colorado, you have a strict legal timer called the statute of limitations. Because pedestrian accidents involve a motor vehicle, you usually have 3 years from the date of the crash to initially file a lawsuit. Think of this like a boarding gate at the airport. Once the gate closes, it doesn't matter how good your excuse is, you are not getting on that plane, and your case is thrown out forever. However, if a city bus or government vehicle hit you, that timer can shrink down to just 182 days to give them a formal warning notice, so you cannot afford to wait. What if the insurance company offers me a quick settlement? A quick check is almost always a lowball trap. They want to hand you a small check for a few $1,000s right now before you realize you might need an expensive surgery next month. It's like selling a mystery box for $10 before you've had a chance to look inside and see that it actually contains a gold watch. Once you sign their paperwork and take that quick cash, you sign away your right to ever ask for another penny, no matter how much your medical bills turn out to be. Should I talk to the driver's insurance adjuster before calling a lawyer? No, do not talk to them. The adjuster is not your friend, and their primary job is to protect their company's bank account, not you. They are trained to ask trick questions to get you to say things that make the accident look like your fault. Talking to an adjuster is like playing a high-stakes board game where they wrote the rule book. but they refuse to let you read it. Let your lawyer be your shield so your words aren't twisted and used against you. What if the driver who hit me does not have insurance? This is a scary situation, but it does not mean your case is hopeless. We look at your own auto insurance policy or even the policy of a family member you live with for something called uninsured motorist coverage. This acts like a backup safety net that you already pay for to protect you from irresponsible drivers. Think of it like a personal umbrella. Even if the driver brought a storm of problems and has no protection, your own policy can unfold to cover your medical bills and lost wages without raising your rates for a crash that wasn't your fault. When should I contact a pedestrian accident lawyer after a crash? You should contact a lawyer as soon as you are safely able to do so. Think of a lawyer like a specialized mechanic. You want to try to rebuild a smashed engine by yourself using a basic screwdriver, so you shouldn't try to fix a massive legal and financial mess without an expert. While you focus 100% of your energy on healing your physical body, your lawyer will focus on handling the insurance companies and protecting your finances. What has to be proven in a pedestrian accident case? We have to build a legal bridge out of 4 blocks to win your case. The first block is showing the driver had a duty to drive safely. The second block is proving they broke that duty, like looking at their phone instead of the road. The third block is showing that their mistake directly caused the crash. And the fourth block is proving that the crash is what caused your injuries. Think of it like a chain of dominoes. If we can't show that the driver's mistake knocked over the whole first domino, the whole case falls apart. We use a legal concept called negligence to tie all of these blocks together and prove the driver was legally responsible for the harm that they caused. What evidence is important in a pedestrian accident case? Evidence is like the fuel that makes your legal engine run. Without it, you aren't going anywhere. The most important evidence includes the official police report, photos of the scene, medical records from the hospital, and statements from people who saw it happen. We also look for electronic clues, like the driver's cell phone records to see if they were texting, or the data from their car's internal computer. Think of it like a puzzle. The more pieces of physical evidence we can put on the table, the clearer the picture becomes to the insurance company and the jury. Do surveillance cameras help in pedestrian accident cases? Surveillance cameras are the ultimate silent witness because they don't have bad memories, they don't take sides, and they don't blink. If a nearby gas station, a doorbell camera, or a city traffic camera caught the crash on video, it completely changes the game. It's exactly like an instant replay in a football game where the referee sees the video from 3 different angles. There's no more arguing about whether the player was out of bounds. We move very fast to get this footage before businesses automatically record over it. What if the other driver denies fault? It is very common for a driver to point the finger at you and say, "They jumped out in front of me." When it becomes a game of he said, she said, we don't panic. We stop relying on words and start relying on physics and science. We bring in an accident reconstruction expert who is basically a scientist for car crashes. They look at things like skid marks on the road, the dent on the car, and the physics of how far your body traveled to prove exactly how fast the car was going and why the driver is lying. What if the insurance company says my injuries were pre-existing? Insurance companies love to look at your medical history and claim, "Oh, their back already hurt before the accident, so we shouldn't have to pay for it." We fight back using a rule known as the eggshell skull rule. This is a legal concept that says you must take a person as you find them. If you had a weak back and the crash turned a minor ache into a major injury that requires surgery, the driver is still 100% responsible for making it worse. It's like hitting a cracked vase with a hammer. You can't blame the vase for breaking when you were the one holding the hammer. What if important evidence is lost after the accident? accident. If evidence is lost or destroyed, it makes our job harder. It can actually backfire on the insurance company. If the driver or their insurance company intentionally destroys evidence, like wiping a car's computer or throwing away cell phone records after we told them to save them, the court can punish them using a rule called spoliation of evidence. The judge can tell the jury to automatically assume that the destroyed evidence proved the driver was guilty. It's like a student hiding their report card from their parents. The missing paper tells everyone all they need to know. What if the driver fled the scene after hitting me? Basically a hit and run. Leaving the scene of an accident is a serious crime, and it can complicate your civil case because we don't know who to sue. If the police catch the driver, their criminal act can be used to ask the court for punitive damages, which is extra punishment money meant to make an example out of them for being so cruel. If the driver is never caught, don't lose hope. We can turn to your own auto insurance policy and use your uninsured motorist coverage and act as if the runaway driver's insurance company was paying your bills. What if the driver was under the influence? A DUI. Driving drunk or high is an automatic violation of the law and counts as negligence per se. When a driver chooses to drink or drive, they are choosing to put a loaded weapon on the road. Just like a hit and run, a DUI case allows for us to ask for punitive damages on top of your normal medical bills. We work closely with the district attorney handling the criminal case to grab the driver's breathalyzer results, blood tests, and police body cam footage to secure an airtight victory in your civil injury case. Can a city or government entity ever be held responsible for a pedestrian accident? Yes, they can, but the rules are very different. If a city leaves a stoplight broken for weeks, covers up a stop sign with tree branches, or designs a crosswalk in a blind spot where crashes happen constantly, they can be held responsible under premises liability. However, governments have a special shield called sovereign immunity that protects them from lawsuits. To break through that shield, we have to follow incredibly strict rules, including filing a very specific warning paper within 182 days of your crash, or you lose your right to sue them forever. What if the road design or intersection was unsafe? Sometimes an intersection is engineered so poorly that it practically sets up an accident to happen. If a road design forces pedestrians to cross 4 lanes of a high-speed traffic without a signal or has a hidden curve right before a walking path, the engineers who build it might be at fault. We hire highway safety engineers as experts to analyze the road's history. If we can prove the city knew the intersection was a high-entry network, but chose to do nothing to fix it, we can sue them for a dangerous condition of a public highway. Why are injuries in pedestrian accident cases often more serious? It all comes down to the brutal law of physics. When a pedestrian is hit, they actually suffer 2 separate impacts. The first impact is when the heavy metal bumper of the car smashes into their legs or torso. The second impact is when their body is thrown into the air and smashes into the concrete road. You are taking a direct hit from both a 2-ton vehicle and the planet Earth. Because you don't have a metal shell, airbags, or a helmet to absorb that injury, your body takes 100% of the force, which causes severe, life-altering damage. What injuries are common in pedestrian accident cases? Because of those 2 impacts, we frequently see complex bone fractures, internal organ bleeding, and deep skin tearing known as road rash. We also see what doctors call coup contre coup, brain injuries, where the brain bounces back and forth inside the skull during the impact. These aren't just simple cuts and bruises. These are catastrophic injuries that often require multiple surgeries, weeks in the intensive care unit, and months of painful physical therapy just to learn how to walk again. Should I get medical treatment even if I think I'm okay? Yes, absolutely, without delay. Right after a terrifying event like being hit by a car, your brain triggers a massive survival response, flooding your body with adrenaline and endorphins. This acts like a natural, high-powered medical numbing spray that hides pain so that you can survive the emergency. You might think you just have a sore hip, but once the adrenaline wears off hours later, you could realize that you have internal bleeding or a torn ligament. Going to the doctor immediately creates an unbroken chain of medical documentation that links your injuries directly to the crash, giving the insurance company zero room to argue. What if the pedestrian accident caused a traumatic brain injury or a TBI or a spinal injury? Injuries to the brain or spinal cord are the most devastating because they change who you are and how your body functions. A traumatic brain injury can affect your memory, your moods, and your ability to look at screens or do your job. A spinal cord injury can cause permanent numbness or paralysis. When we handle a case involving a permanent impairment, we don't just look at today's bills. We hire a medical life care planner to calculate your future medical expenses and your loss of earnings capacity, which is the total amount of money you would have earned over your lifetime if the injury hadn't stolen your ability to work. What damages can I recover after a pedestrian accident? Damages is just a formal legal word for the money you need to get your life back to normal. We look at your life like a balance scale. The crash put a massive weight of problems on one side, and we want to put enough money on the other side to level it out. In Colorado, we divide this money into two main buckets: economic damages, which are things that come with an exact receipt, and non-economic damages, which cover the human toll of the crash that doesn't have a specific price tag. Can I recover medical expenses after a pedestrian accident? Yes, absolutely. The person who broke you has to pay to fix you. This covers your immediate emergency room visit, ambulance rides, surgeries, doctor visits, and medication costs. Think of it like an accidental tab run up at a restaurant. If someone else dropped the plates and ordered the expensive dishes, they are the ones who have to pay the waiter at the end of the night, not you. Can I recover the cost of future medical care after a pedestrian accident? Yes. If your doctor says you will need another knee surgery in 5 years or physical therapy for the next 10 years, we calculate those future medical expenses too. It's like booking a long vacation. You don't just calculate the price of the plane ticket today, you have to budget for the hotel and meals you need down the road. We use medical experts to estimate exactly what those future treatments will cost, so you aren't stuck paying them out of pocket later. Can I recover lost wages or future lost wages after a pedestrian accident? Yes. If you had to miss 2 weeks of work because you couldn't walk, the driver owes you for those missing paychecks. This covers the regular hours you missed, any overtime you would have worked, and even the sick days or vacation time you were forced to use up. It's like a thief stealing cash straight out of your wallet. The driver's mistake took that money away from your family, and the law says they have to put it back. Can I recover loss of earning capacity after a pedestrian accident? Yes. What happens if your injuries are so severe that you can never go back to your old high-paying career? That is called a loss of earning capacity. Think of your ability to work like an asset, like a house. If someone destroys that asset, they have to pay for its total value over your lifetime. We hire financial experts to add up all the raises, promotions, and years of lost work because your body can no longer do the job. How is pain and suffering calculated in a pedestrian accident case? Because you can't hand a judge a physical receipt for pain, insurance companies use two main methods to calculate pain and suffering. The first is the multiplier method, where they take your total medical bills and multiply them by a number between 1 and 5, depending on how bad the crash was. The second is the per diem method, which pays you a set amount of money for every single day you are in pain until you get better. Think of it like a terrible job nobody would ever apply for. If someone offered you a daily rate to live with a broken leg and severe anxiety, the daily rate is what we argue you deserve for enduring it against your will. Do I have a case if I was partially at fault for the pedestrian accident? Yes, you can absolutely still have a case. Colorado follows a rule called comparative negligence. Think of fault like 100% pie. If you were crossing the street while looking at your phone, a jury might say you were 20% slice of the blame. But if the driver was speeding, they take an 80% slice of the blame. As long as your slice of the pie is less than 50%, you can still win. The court simply shrinks your final check by your percentage of fault. So if your case is worth $100,000, you would walk away with $80,000. Our job as your legal team is to fight back against the insurance company to keep your slice of the pie as tiny as possible. Can I still recover compensation if it was dark outside? Yes, you can. Drivers love to argue, it was dark. They were wearing black clothes. I couldn't see them. But nighttime is not a get out of jail free card for running over a human being. The law says drivers must adjust their driving to the conditions around them, which means slowing down, using high beams when appropriate, and being extra careful in poorly lit neighborhoods. Think of it like walking through your own house at night. Just because the lights are off doesn't mean you're allowed to blindly sprint down the hallway and knock over furniture. Drivers have a continuous duty to maintain a proper lookout. If you were there to be seen by an attentive driver, the person behind the wheel is still responsible for hitting you. How much does it cost to hire a pedestrian accident lawyer? It costs you exactly $0 out of your own pocket to get started. Personal injury lawyers work on what is called a contingency fee basis. This is just a fancy way of saying, I don't get paid unless you get paid. Beyond the lawyer's fee, there are litigation costs. These are expenses for things like hiring crash scientists, ordering thousands of pages of hospital records, or filing former papers at the courthouse. Think of it like a business partnership. We invest our time, legal strategy, and money into your case to build a winning defense, and we only take a percentage of the final settlement check. If we lose the case, you don't owe us a single dime for our time. How long does a typical pedestrian accident case take to resolve? A typical pedestrian accident case can take anywhere from a few months to a couple of years to wrap up. The timeline depends almost entirely on how fast your physical body heals. We cannot settle your case until you reach maximum medical improvement, or MMI, which is a doctor's way of saying your body has healed as much as it possibly can. Think of settling your case too early like trying to write a book review when you've only read the first chapter. If we rush it, we might completely underestimate how much your future medical care will cost. And you can't go back and ask the insurance company for a do-over once the case is closed. Will my pedestrian accident case settle or go to court? The vast majority of cases, about 95% of them, settle out of court through continuous negotiation with the insurance company. This is where we show them our mountain of undeniable evidence, and they agree to write a fair check to avoid the massive cost of a trial. However, if the insurance company plays games, digs their heels in, and refuses to offer a fair amount, we will file a formal lawsuit and take them to court. We prepare every single case as if it is going to a jury trial anyway, because the absolute best way to get a peace treaty from an insurance company is to show them you are completely ready for war. How are medical bills paid while my pedestrian accident case is pending? This is a huge point of confusion. The driver's insurance company does not pay your medical bills as they show up in your mailbox. They only pay one lump sum at the very end of the case. While your case is moving forward, your bills are technically your responsibility. To keep collections agencies off your back, we can use your own health insurance or a special auto insurance feature called MedPay, or medical payments coverage, which pays for medical care immediately, regardless of who caused the crash. We can also work with doctors who accept a medical lien, meaning they agree to treat you now and wait for their payment until your case settles. Will my health insurance cover treatment after a pedestrian accident? Yes, your health insurance is legally required to cover your medical treatments after an accident, just like they would if you got sick at home. However, health insurance companies hate paying for car crashes, so they will often ask if there is a third party, like a careless driver, who should be blamed for this instead. Once your case is over, your health insurance company will look for something called subrogation. This is a legal right that allows them to raise their hand at the end of the line and say, hey, we paid for $10,000 for their broken leg, so we want that $10,000 back out of their final settlement check. Do I have to pay my medical bills, health insurance back out of my settlement? Yes. Under Colorado's lien laws, if a hospital or health insurance company covers your care, they have a legal right to be paid back from your settlement check. This sounds scary, but it's actually where a good lawyer earns their keep. We review every single line of those bills to make sure they aren't overcharging you. In Colorado, we also have a massive consumer protection rule called the Made Whole Doctrine. This rule states that an insurance company cannot take a single penny of your settlement unless you have been completely and 100% compensated for all of your physical injuries, emotional pain, and losses first. Can medical bills be negotiated? Yes, absolutely they can. Medical bills are not set in stone. They are more like the price tag on a used car. There is almost always room for a bargain. Once we secure a winning settlement for you, our job switches from fighting the driver's insurance company to negotiating with the hospitals and health insurance companies. We use our legal leverage to cut those bills down by percentages, 10%, 20%, 30%. Lowering your bills means more of that final settlement check ends up being exactly where it belongs, in your bank account, not in the hospital's pocket.